Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us on our Day 1 Community Talk series for Sexual Assault Awareness Month 2021. Today, I have the privilege of talking about our Day 1 programs and services, and I think it's so important that we talk about these and go over them because with COVID, everything's different, but our services are still available. They just are accessed a little differently. So first, I'd love to start with giving you our phone number so you can reach Day 1, usually during 9 to 5, at the number 401-421-4100. But of course, you're always welcome to leave a voicemail me. Try and get back as soon as possible. If you're in need of advocacy quicker, we're closed. You can reach out to the 24/7 helpline for victims of crime at 1-800-494-8100. And that's available at night, on weekends, on holidays where maybe Day 1 isn't open and we're not available to talk about our advocacy services or referrals. Our mission is to reduce the prevalence of sexual violence while also advocating for those affected by it. And I think this is so important because our mission is both proactive and reactive. We want to stop sexual violence before it even has the chance to occur, but we also recognize that it is still happening and survivors need resources. So we really do advocate for survivors as well. That's a huge part of the work we do. I'll start and talk about the first department, that is adult advocacy, and this is the department that I work in. I'm the advocacy coordinator, so I work directly with survivors and I refer them to resources, talk about options. I'm also here just as an emotional support that they can call and talk to. I work with hospitals and police departments to train, educate them on sexual assault, domestic violence, the dynamics of these crimes, and resources in our community. And I also work with our volunteer coordinator, Nolan, to lead the amazing helpline that I love so much and our already volunteers that staffs it. The helpline is a 24/7 service where we have volunteers on call 24/7 for survivors who present at hospitals or police departments. Survivors that are a victim of sexual assault, domestic violence, and hate crimes are able to request a victim advocate when at a hospital or police department. And our amazing volunteers will either provide telephone or in person advocacy, depending on their comfort level. And these amazing volunteers will come give emotional support, educate on the processes, what's going to happen, what are the next steps. They work to empower survivors to make decisions that are best for them, and we're just there to support them. I can't say enough good things about our volunteers. So if you're a volunteer and you're watching this, thank you so much for all you do. We could really not do this work without you, and you're so important to this organization and survivors. We also have law enforcement advocates. These individuals are not police officers, they are advocates that work for Day 1, but they work within police departments and very closely with police. And their job is to be a support as someone goes through the legal process. They can be present when someone's reporting, when someone goes to court, and pieces in between. They can educate someone on what their options are, what those options would look like if they decide to go through with it, and keeping them up to date on their court proceedings and what to expect. These can be really helpful as we know the legal process can be extremely intimidating for survivors. We also have our victim advocate at the Office of Victim Services at the Department of Corrections. Her name is Kim. She's amazing. And what Kim does is she works with survivors who has an offender that's within the ACI. She can get victims set up with VINE, the victim notification system that lets survivors know when the perpetrator is getting out of jail, when they're going to court, all of those things that can help. Just if a victim has that notification, they can make sure they're safe and that offender won't have access to them. And it's just nice to get that heads up. She can also work with victims who just have questions about what's going on if their offender is in the ACI. And she can get you set up with that VINE that I just talked about. And that's really our adult advocacy program. So now we'll move on to our child advocacy program, which is pretty much the counterpart to what I do. They work with children under 14. So if a child under 14 discloses sexual abuse, they are referred to the Child Advocacy Center for a forensic interview. The forensic interview is when a child is in a room with a professional forensic interviewer, and this child and forensic interviewer are on camera and being recorded, and the child is aware of this the entire time. And in the other room, Every stakeholder within the case would be there and they'd be able to ask certain questions that the forensic interviewer would hear and then be able to ask in both a trauma informed and legally sounding way. The purpose of this forensic interview is to interview the child in this trauma informed and legally standing way. So hopefully the child, instead of taking the stand, would be able to utilize this video. And this helps lessen the trauma occurred throughout the legal proceeding and not re-traumatize the child when talking about the abuse. They also offer MDT services where, again, every stakeholder within that case would be present to talk about the case, talk about next steps, be updated, instead of the child, the parent, or the caregiver having to go to every stakeholder within the case and repeat the same thing over and over again. This saves their energy, saves them from being re-traumatized, and is just really helpful for their mental and emotional health. They offer trauma-informed care and clinical services, and I'll get into our clinical services in a little bit. And we also have a CSEC department, and this department works with children who are at risk or confirmed trafficking victims. They also offer those MDT services I spoke about, and they also have mentors that can work with the children and just form a bond with them. And like I said, we'll move on to our clinical services. We offer one-on-one trauma-informed therapy. We have a variety of methods that are really amazing. And all our one-on-one therapies are virtual at the moment. We also offer support groups. We have a trauma-informed yoga group that is extremely popular. We have a sexual assault survivor support group. We have an art expression therapy group. We have a core group, which is not a processing group, but it's a group that allows survivors to attend and really understand trauma, what's going on, and how processing works. And we also have a non-offending parents group. This group would be for parents who are not the offenders of a child who is sexually abused, and they can go and talk about what they're going through as well. And lastly, we have T-Team, which is an in-home therapy option, and this requires a DCYF referral. And lastly, I'll talk about our prevention department. So our prevention department works with schools, colleges, and just institutions within Rhode Island to educate on consent, sexual assault, and work to educate individuals to raise awareness, which then would hopefully prevent sexual violence. They also work with a college collaborative, which allows college students to have a seat at the table to really talk about these issues and what they can do to help prevent sexual assault. If you're interested in utilizing our services, again, you can call 401-421-4100. Our clinical coordinator can be reached at extension 121. I can be reached at extension 146 if you need to talk to an advocate or you're interested in learning more about volunteering on our helpline. And I hope to see you again at our later in the month Day 1 community talks. Thanks so much.